Welcome to the panel discussion on the topic Driving Business Outcomes Through Skill First Learning. I'm Pooja Bothra, Senior Content Lead ETHR World, and your host for this session. We are no strangers to the shifts in business and the corresponding talent requirements. Changing work patterns, business models, and reliance on digital technologies require organizations to upskill their employees with future competencies swiftly. It's the only way to maintain business relevance, growth, and resilience to future disruptions. Of course, the process of reskilling is not a simple one-day affair, considering the complexities involved in designing a comprehensive skill-first strategy. To discuss more on the skill-first approach to learning and development, we have an eminent panel, and I'd like to now introduce them to you. Please join me in welcoming the panel. Anil Joseph, Head of HR, APAC, Sutherland. Anand Palekar, VP and Head, L&D, Wells Fargo. Anurag Seth, VP and Head, Talent Transformation, Wipro. Dallas Krishnan, Managing Director, Enterprise, Coursera. Panish Rao, CPO, Mindtree. Raj Narayan, former EVP and CHRO, Titan. Viewers, thank you for being a part of this roundtable. Please share your questions for the panelists using the chat tab. We want to make this session very interactive, so keep sharing your thoughts and queries from the beginning and not reserve it for the end. Welcome, panelists. My first question is for Anil. In the last 1 year, we saw an unprecedented demand for data, digital, and cloud skill across industries. According to you, what has been the major skill gap in your organization and what has been your plan of action?
Thank you, Pooja, for having me on this discussion with a very distinguished panel of experts. I hope I'm audible, Pooja. Can you just confirm that?
Sure, you are.
Thank you. So, like you said, I represent Sutherland. It's a business process transformation company which is engaged in digital transformation for most of our clients. And at Sutherland, we've been through a phase of rapid and disruptive change. And I'm sure this has been the case for most of our, our co-panelists as well and companies at large. Now, what we've learned is to step up, adjust, and perfect as we make progress. And I can say we first ensured that we survived, then we adapted, and now we are really thriving, and that's what we've noticed over the last 12 to 18 odd months. Now, 15% of our workforce within Sutherland, so which is approximately 4,000 to 5,000 people, are engaged in analytics, RPA, which is robotics process automation, IT services, technology services, enterprise support, and all of the other, tech-related work. And in addition to business process transformation services like back office and front office support. Now, like any other organization, we also had our skill gaps. And I think more than real programming and coding and technology skill, it was more about adoption and awareness. So what we noticed was that when we were moving our work to work at home, from office, brick and mortar to work at home, it was more awareness of the tools and technologies that are being built by the company for the new setup, right? And to overcome this, we did extensive training, webinars, we did talk shows with our senior leaders, under transformation and innovation. We did demo videos, and we also did certification for our employees. And we give them certificate from our own university, which is Sutherland University of Robotics Education. Now, the other thing was an understanding of how these tools not only just help them in their productivity and safety for employees at Sutherland, but also how it really enables clients' businesses. And so what we did was we proactively started our client partners, our delivery partners and our client executives started talking about this in the monthly reviews and the quarterly reviews so that, our clients understand how this is deployed in various other businesses and create a ripple effect across the industry verticals, because our clients come from multiple verticals and industry segments. So everything they notice, they naturally started asking from competition as well. And we had a lot of best practice sharing as a result. the final thing was adoption, reward, and recognition. So we made digital transformation and adoption as part of goals and bonuses for our people, and it also was leading to driving it across the organization, and we even hired senior leaders to advocate and to drive this across the company. Now, these are all hard skills, as you can imagine. We also were worried and concerned about soft skills, right? And it was extremely important for the kind of business we are in. And what we noticed is that they are less measurable, as you understand, and they are as vital for careers of all of our employees. And what we thought that we needed to add was tech agility and virtual influence. So these are two things which I remember that we added to our confluence of skills, and that really, really helped. And some of the areas where training programs were conducted, and that bridged the gap. But critical thinking, problem solving, communication, and leadership and teamwork came hand in hand, and that we've been trying to advocate a lot more. Now, Pooja, at this point, at where we are right now, I'm just reminded of a cliche, which I'm sure all of you know. The illiterate of the 21st century is not somebody who can't read or write, right? It is a person who can't learn, unlearn, or relearn. So bridging gaps. People have to do a learning exercise, as well as be participative in the company's or the organization's interventions, is what I would feel. Over to you, Pooja.
Sure, thank you, Anil. Very interesting, and it sounds like a very robust learning ecosystem you've created, and you also have a solid plan of action that you're implementing. I'll come back to you later and ask you about how you aligning your learning content with your business outcome.
Sure.
But I'll come to you later in the show. Going to Dallas, Coursera, being a learning platform, can provide us with a macro view on how skills landscape has evolved in the last 1 year, and what are the emerging skills of the future.
All right. First and foremost, thank you, Pooja, and thanks everyone. I hope I'm audible here.
Yes.
My privilege to be sitting with absolutely brilliant set of panelists here, and these are the people who are actually making things happen. We kind of sit somewhere in between, where we have the visibility by virtue of the sheer 85 million odd learners who sit on our platform, and some of the core work that we do while working with companies, institutions, and educators. Right, we kind of bring the three together, and that's the space where we have a unique position to be able to see some of the things that's happening around the world. In the way we see this is that there is no question that the world is changing, right? The needs of skills are changing, the skills are evolving, and so are we, right? So this is going to continue to happen. In the last work that we had done with World Economic Forum, which was the Future of Jobs report that was published sometime late last year, it had pointed towards a set of irreversible trends, right? Some of this were to do with the disruption that the pandemic caused. And there was another set which was being caused by technologies, right? And Anil spoke about automation, right? So there were these two double trends that we see in the last few months. The one which is driven in terms of some form of acceleration of digital and technology being adopted, which is driven from a pandemic-induced change in how the learning is happening, how consumers are changing, and that in turn resulting in new technologies getting adopted in various businesses and industries. So that's driving a set of trends. The second one is, of course, a much larger one, which has been around by the way, for some time, which is around automation, right? That is changing the very landscape of what was earlier, I would say, a simple entry-level skill is no longer the same, because that's getting disrupted with automation. But at the same time, there are a lot of new skills that are emerging, right? So which is, if you take these two forces together, there are a lot of new things that are emerging. In one of the surveys that we had done, we found that about 98% of the employers were having some form of plan to retrain their existing employees, right? And to shift their skills from where they were to another area. So coming to the second part of your question, in terms of a simple skills report, what we do know is that in the future, the relevancy of a skill is going to be less less than 5 years. So that's one thing that is going to be emerging, which to Anil's point, he so beautifully spoke about, in the context of being illiterate. The core skill that will be one of people wanting to having the ability to learn, having the ability to unlearn, and having the ability to relearn, right? So that will continue to be very important skill, because the relevancy of skills is going to reduce, and this is probably going to accelerate even further. And 42% of the jobs that will emerge in the future will completely require newer set of skills than that are there today. If I have to summarize this, it will be two types of broad skills: a set of digital skills and human skills. Right? These are the two things that are coming together. If I were to look at the digital skills, these are what is visible in front of all of us, especially the panelists out here. Their skills around data, skills around cloud, right? These are stuff that continues to be in demand, and that's only accelerating at a much faster pace. But there are newer skills that are emerging and that are becoming more important in this more virtual world that we are, right? Things around problem solving, things around working with people, right, in a very different work environment that is emerging. Think around self-management, right? These are some of the newer skills, human skills that we are seeing, which are emerging as top skills as we move forward.
Thank you, Dallas. And I totally agree that in next 5 years, the skills will change completely. The shelf life of skill is reducing. And I think probably technical skills shelf life could be even smaller. With us, we have a leader's leader, Raj. And my question to Raj is, as automation takes over decision-making on daily basis, senior leaders need a new set of skills to bridge the gap between human and machine. Please share your insights on leadership skills and why is it important for organizations to invest in leadership learning?
So I think, the fact that there is disruption happening is not something to be discussing. It's a given, isn't it? Now, when there is disruption of this kind, and I would say total disruption on every facet, be it the whole customer experience on the one hand, to the way, and if you take just to step back a bit and look at this disruption in the context that we are in today, Untitled. So we are a multi-product organization. We're in the loosely put in the lifestyle space, and one of the few organizations that spans or straddles the entire value chain. So from customer insighting to design to manufacturing to sourcing to marketing, distribution, retail, and after-sales service. Now, the kind of disruption that's happening in terms of the marketplace, because one, we're largely brick and mortar. The customers do prefer to come and shop in our stores, but then with the shutdowns we've had over the last 1 year, the dependency on e-com and omni platforms has definitely gone up. Manufacturing is going through a lot of change. Anil spoke about it, and there is a lot of automation that's happening. After sales is going through a very great amount of change. Now, to make sure that a lot of these changes take place, leadership has a very key role. One, in terms of what do we need for the future? I think deciding that is something leadership has a big responsibility for. One. Two, with data and analytics coming in a big way, decision making, while we still use our gut to take decisions, I think decision making is far more informed today going forward. And there's a lot more of analysis available. There's a lot more of data available. And leadership uses a lot of that and needs to lead by example. So one is, of course, setting the direction in terms of what direction should an organization take, given this disruption in the marketplace, in the way in the world around, as we move to manufacturing 4.0, supply chain 4.0, design 4.0, and industry 4.0, right? And I'm sure there's retail of X.0 that's also happening, right? And technology plays a big role. Now, direction, one. Two, role modeling. 3, decision making has become far more agile. Yeah, and leadership has a huge role to play there. Now, it's critical that leaders come together and have a common understanding of where do we want to go as an organization. And that's something we did very well about 4 or 5 years ago when we looked at our journey going forward. And we got 20 of our top leaders to come in, discuss, and actually have a very well-known world leader who was conducting a program. We all attended that program, got a lot of insights into that. And then from there, we looked at what all can we do, right? And our digital journey, in a sense, was set through as a process emanating from that. And if leadership is not aligned, I think the journey that an organization takes will be not so clear, right? And it can even fail. Yeah. So to ensure success, I think leadership has a huge role to play, and leadership development and alignment at leadership, yeah, is also very critical.
Sure, Raj. Thank you. Definitely, there'll be new set of skills that will be required for leaders 4.0 as we are in the fourth industrial revolution. With accelerated technologies, there has been a major shift in learning patterns. My question to you, Anand, is that, what kind of shifts have you seen in this last 1 year, and how have you addressed skill gap in your organization?
Yeah, so I have personally seen some shifts in the things that people have been wanting to learn. And I think I break up your question in 2 parts, right? One is what the learner wants, and one is what the organization wants. And as I see, one of the questions that has come up is, when you want to drive skilling, how do you create it as a pull factor rather than as a push factor? And I believe that's a key question that is asked by probably everybody. And somewhere I've also resigned to some pieces out there. The organizational aspect is very simple, Pooja. The context exists. And because of the context, we are able to drive a very strong learning process out there. When it comes to individuals and to take into account everything that has been spoken out here, and I'm a bank, I work with a bank. We are also going through our transformation and our digital journey. How do we ensure that people who are doing what they're doing are getting skilled to do higher order work? I think earlier, say 2.5, 3 years back, when I used to look at my numbers and what people used to like to learn on their own, I used to see a lot of skill-related focus areas. I used to see a lot of communication focus-related areas. What I'm seeing today, Pooja, is kind of quite different. I'm seeing a lot more people trying to pick up stuff which is more job-specific or role-specific. So I'm seeing a lot of technical, of course, programs uptick. I'm seeing a lot of process-related uptick. So think Six Sigma. I'm seeing a lot of that happen. And while we have put together frameworks, we put together learning paths for it, we're not really forcing people down that path. We're saying, look, this is available. And we're just trying to chart out what people are really interested in. And I see a lot of uptake on, as I said, technical process. And since we are a bank, a lot to do with banking related skill sets, and not just the entry level, much more complex stuff. And all this in the realm of our own internal setup. Of course, we have partners who do share us some insights with us. And when we look at those kind of skill sets, they are also in alignment with some of these pieces. So I would say, here's the best part. These are not people from technology or necessarily absorbing this kind of information or learning. These are people from operations. These are people from HR, from finance. These are not ICs necessarily. These are managers also who are absorbing. Earlier, I used to see a very clear trend. Managers are spending a lot more time in management courses. Today, I'm seeing them spend a lot more time in technical programs. I started picking up some technical programs because at some point of time, I won't have an analytics team doing my job for me. I may have to do it myself. I may have to do my data crunching. So what will work for me? I'm seeing a whole lot of that shift, which is fantastic. So we've enabled it by putting together our learning frameworks in place and enabling people to absorb it.
Thank you, Anand. And I, totally agree that banks especially are going through a major tech transformation. And many of them are, now also kind of becoming technology organization, as they are competing with fintech, agile fintech companies. Right. So the learning requirements. Yeah.
Pooja, there were roles that I've been a banker throughout, right? I've been in banking and then I've made a transition into L&D. But I've not seen roles that we are seeing today. And in the last 8 months to 12 months. It's probably very different for Anurag and Panish. They've seen these roles. When I heard for the first time, and pardon me, panelists out here, product-based roles in banking, I was like, I realized what they were talking, and it took us some time to figure it out. So you were right, absolutely.
Yeah. Going to you, Panish, the youngest lot in the workplace, that is Gen Z, are driven more by learning opportunities than by job stability. They are always looking for challenging projects, peer-to-peer learning, and cross-functional experiences. What kind of learning ecosystem are you creating for this cohort to hone present-day skills and future skills?
Talking specifically about Mindtree, I think, we have a lovely learning platform which hosts over 50,000 courses for people to access from anywhere, anytime. And this is a huge learning platform. And, I'm very happy to share some data from the company that we have logged in over 3 million hours of training in the last 1 year. And that's during the pandemic. I guess, people had a lot of time working remotely from home, and which was well utilized, I would say. The second thing that we try to do is, keeping them relevant is the project, based on project need and based on their personal aspirations, we rotate people constantly. These are role-based learning or opportunity-based skilling that we call, and we move people from project to project from time to time. The other one is we also have several opportunities to cultivate cross-domain knowledge among the people. There are industry academia tie-ups that we have with Stanford University, we have with IIT Madras, we have with Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, so on and so forth. And apart from this, we have a huge Campus Minds program where we hire freshers and we take them through a 90-day program, rigorous program. In fact, I must say that, even before they come out of the campus, the moment we select them, we start engaging them on various learning programs. We give them access to the platform. And apart from this, there are some trivia that we do in the organization, which was a new thing that we brought in during the pandemic. To bring in some rest to the fatigue or the monotony that people go through. So we introduced a masterclass where we call people from different walks of life. And it could be an international cricketer, for example. It could be an army general, for example. It could be, nothing to do with what we do in terms of our business, the software delivery. These are people from varied background, and they come and share their experience, which is a huge inspiration to people. And we also introduce something called the Mind and Matter. It's a quiz program, monthly quiz program. So people get engaged into quizzing, and we have a master quiz master who conducts this. Then we have a grand finale for the month. We have done it for about 6 months now. We plan to do it for the next 6 months. And the last month is going to be the finale from the winners of each month. So these are some things that we do. And I must say that going forward, I come from an era where companies took the responsibility of skilling and training people that they employed. And then came the change, the transformation. The company and the individuals both are responsible for skill and development. Now, I think we are walking into an era where companies will probably not take the responsibility, but provide the source and the platform. It shall be the responsibility of the individuals to stay relevant, to be able to be gainfully employed. Right. So that's from me. Thank you, Pooja.
Sure, Panish. And, I feel how much ever technology we use, but by bringing fun into your learning, I think the recall factor will be much more. And I think it's such a wonderful, opportunity for employees from tier 2, tier 3 cities when you have these industry academia relationship, when you talk about Stanford University. So it's like a dream come true for those employees. So,
Absolutely.
It's really amazing to hear all this.
In fact, I must share the platform that we have for learning. you can identify the other people who are doing a similar program from the platform, and you can network with people who are doing a similar course so that you learn from each other also, apart from going through the learning there. So, it's sort of getting the community together, learning from each other without feeling shy of it, because you are learning the same thing, I'm learning the same thing. We're exchanging. It's sort of creating a classroom kind of a atmosphere while being in the corporate.
I'd like to go to Anurag now, and I'll ask Anurag that, how are you managing multi-generation learning? I remember last time we spoke, you were talking about project managers, that how they need to first unlearn and then relearn, because modes of operations have changed so much. So, how are you doing that in your organization, and where are you seeing those skill gaps?
I mean, the skill gaps in the project managers obviously are of two types. One is that the pure play manager concept is going away from the industry. In this whole new agile way of working, you are not having, the customers don't want somebody who is managing the entire project and just looking after people management, schedule management, and all that thing. They want hands-on managers. So the new term like technical manager actually is really taking shape in this particular thing. And that is where you face a lot of challenge, because many of these managers would have stopped coding, stopped being hands-on for quite some time. And how do you now bring them back onto technology? There's a little cultural barrier that you need to cross in doing that activity. Second thing is that, the way you manage the young generation, because every year, I think most of the IT companies are hiring anything between 10 to 20,000 freshers who join every year from campuses. And all of these people, the way you manage these people itself is undergoing a change. Even the customers today are no longer expecting that they talk only to the key, the key layer of the people, where you talk to leads and project managers only. Customers in the agile way of working, they want to talk to the last person who is working on the project. And to that extent, how do you make the fresher more competent, have that confidence level so that he or she can talk to the customers directly is one thing that happens. And that is where the project managers need to work on. And in order to do that, not only that, there is a third element, which is the delivery models are undergoing change. You no longer have those standard SDLC or the waterfall models that we had. First you have a requirement phase and design and coding and all. You go through that whole cycle. Now the customers are saying, bring in automation. Many people spoke about that automation angle, right? That the things which were done manually, now you automate and do that. Other element which is at least in our organization is becoming big is crowdsourcing. We have a crowdsourcing platform where the concept is that with so many number of new age skills that are coming up in the industry, in these new age skills, you will always be limited of the talent that you have available with you, for a project. And so what crowdsourcing does is that there is in all our development kind of projects, about 15% of the work we are actually putting onto a central platform, crowdsourcing platform, where the project manager puts, let's say, designing a front end screen or doing testing of the application. They actually put it on the platform, and any employee anywhere in the world picks it up and starts contributing. And in exchange of that, there is a monetary value there, right? So if you do testing of this much and you successfully finish, you'll get $300. In some cases, if it's a very high-end skill, you're working on microservices or blockchain or something like the data science, the prize money could be $1,000 or even $5,000, right? Now, that's a motivation for the individuals who may otherwise be working 9 hours a day. But these people are now actually contributing, and they also make extra money. So while they get a chance to work on new age technologies or different kind of works, but they are also making money. And the project managers, for them to work in this model that, today, when I have to ramp up a 100-member team, I may not get 100-member team for next 2 months because there's scarcity of people. I need an architect. I won't get an architect. How can I actually carve out that piece of work which I do, which anybody in the world can pick it up? And I talked about, my own organization employees, but we actually have this platform open to even non-organization people, anybody in the world. We're at this platform called Top Coder, where anybody in the world can just pick it up and do that kind of work. So a lot of these changes in terms of automation, agile way of working, project managers becoming hands-on, using crowdsourcing, using different kind of delivery models which are coming up, and we are investing a lot in training these project managers and the higher ups, the delivery manager, the account delivery heads and all. We are actually mandating, kind of soft mandating, let me put it. These guys you can't put hard. So soft mandating and encouraging them that you learn these new tricks of the trade in terms of managing people, managing remote people. You have never seen, somebody said, you've never seen a project, your team itself, and we are hiring people from wherever, and you have never even seen your team members, never met them. How do you manage them? Keep them motivated, right? So a lot of these things, we have revamped our project management programs, and we are giving it to the people and building that thing. It obviously takes time, because it's not easy that you just put it in slides and tell something. It's a cultural transfer. That is how I would articulate this answer, Pooja.
Very interesting, Anurag. Thank you for sharing those insights. Very, very to the point. Yes, Raj, please go on.
No, I would just want to add something to what I said earlier. See,
Yes.
one of the things we do is look at, when you talked about leadership and leadership development, we said it's important to look at leadership development comprehensively across all levels, right? So we set up what is called a 4-tiered leadership program. Young leaders, emerging leaders, senior management, and top management. And there were elements which are common, but the focus is very different and completely on the different target audience and their needs. But the red line is important, that the organizational elements in terms of culture, etc., are kept. But learning and skilling, a couple of elements which we did, which were very different from usual. One was, we set up something called Exchange, where we tied up with 7 other organizations in Bangalore. And in fact, one of them was from outside Bangalore. Marquee organizations, leaders in their business, but not competing with us, right? And none of these companies are competing with each other. But all of us, from CHROs, when we talked about it, and heads of L&D, when we talked about it, we said, we all have similar needs in some ways. So we set up Exchange, where we picked up 6 or 7 topics, like innovation, customer delight, strategy development, strategy deployment, etc. And each of us picked up topics, and we said we will showcase what we do in our organization to the others. And there was a cohort of about 40 people, right? And a couple of our people here, their organizations were also part of this at one point or the other. We had 6 such, 6-month program, and we've already run 6. Number 7 is going to go on. It's going to be an online edition. So far, it's been in person. This was before the pandemic, of course. But the kind of learning that was there was amazing, and people learn from each other, other organizations, and from each other, right? And we also had a process by which they would actually implement that back in their own organizations. The other element which was good for us was we talked to organizations within the Tata Group and outside for immersions. And these immersions were typically 2-day affairs, where we would get a group of, say, 10 or 15 people who would get a good view on a particular subject. And their learnings would then be distilled, and they would apply it back in their work, A lot of work, transformation happens when people, that's the only way to make sure that there's learning from outside in. Of course, you bring in capability from outside for sure, but important to make people learn in groups and, build that back into the organization. So a couple of these examples.
Wonderful. These are wonderful examples, Raj. Thank you for sharing. And collaboration is really one of the best ways to learn. I'll take some audience questions now. Dallas, there is a question from the audience for you. How are small and medium-sized companies, especially in the IT sector, taking up to reskilling and upskilling? Could you share some insights?
I'll put it this way, it's a very wide market out there. The IT sector, in one sense, is about the people and the skills that they deliver and the projects that they do, right? It's around their businesses. So the reskill, upskill programs, in my view, would be no different for a large company vis-a-vis a small company. Maybe the mechanisms of how they deliver those could be a part digital, in the previous example, we talked about collaboration with the external parties, third parties. So there were many of those mechanisms that exist. But in the context of the need for reskill and upskill, I don't see it any differently, right? In each, because they're all driven by what they do for their end customers. The changes in what is happening in the customer environment is what is driving the change for what the new age skills are. And that is finally driving the demand in these small, whether it is a small IT services company or a very large IT services company. Maybe the complexity of the work that gets done is different. And hence the type of skills that they look at is slightly different. But the need for change is being driven by the customers.
Sure, Dallas. Another audience question is that Anand made an excellent point about creating pull for skills transformation rather than pushing it. Can the panel share some best practices on how you create pull in your organizations?
Hi, I actually picked it up as a question which Kiran had posed on the question and answer segment, and I've answered that, but it's a tough one. I sometimes want to give up, but context becomes very important. There will be early adopters. 100% wanting people, somebody seeing 5 years hence and saying that these people may be rendered jobless, for them to realize it today is going to be very tough to communicate. We do a lot of storytelling, pick up fascinating stories of Subway's digital transformation or similar other across the organization, even in our organization, and look at sharing it with them. So sharing stories, smaller, of course, segments of learning, making it exciting. What we also do is we take them to the next level. So this is 101. Once you've done your 101, then probably take you to a deeper segment, help you. Imagine for a non-tech person to be able to create a bot would be a fascinating experience in my mind. And that spreads. So some of those information spreads out across the organization, then more people start to take it. Of course, leadership focus helps for them to drive in, but that's how I've been working on doing a pull. I can't say I'm 100% success. Maybe we should listen to someone else.
Pooja, I just want to add, this is Anil from Sutherland.
Sure.
This is the perfect analogy is taking the horse to water, but how do we ensure making it drink, right? At Sutherland, and I think Fanish mentioned this, that his organization has close to 50,000 courses on their LMS. We have close to 30 to 33,000 courses. And the best thing we've done so far to introduce and encourage people to learn is to include this as their IDP in their annual goals, and 10% weightage for their annual merit is assigned to learning and development. So that's one. And second, we've introduced something called Sutherland Launch Vehicle for Careers. This is for internal career mobility, where anybody doing any role can aspire to do something different. Whether or not the vacancy exists today, it doesn't matter. So I can apply, let's say I'm a customer service consultant handling a retail customer, but I want to do something in analytics because I studied that in my engineering or in my graduation. I can actually apply for an analytics role, and there will be someone in the organization who will interview the candidate, and if selected will provide an LOI, a letter of intent, that once the opportunity arises, you will have the first right of refusal. So until that thing happens, that event happens, you have ample time to take up some learning which is provided to you by the organization. Go to the LMS, learn things that probably will aid your growth and your transition into this role. So people really look forward to it. So I think that's how we've created the poll.
If I can add a small part to this, we have one initiative called Trend Next, where we say people with up to 6-7 years of experience. It's a gamification platform, right? So every time you pick up a skill, it is a level 1, you get 10 points, level 2, 20 points, level 3, 30 points. And you keep collecting. And we said in our career bands that you have, and if you want to get progress to the next level, typically it is not like a mandatory criteria, but these points is something that will add weight to your nomination for evaluation to the next progression level. And we find a large number of these youngsters, it's a little bit of a tickle to them, that, for my progression next level, I can be fast tracked if I do this activity. So that is one thing we try differently.
Very interesting. So the next question, yes, Panish.
Sorry, if you want to go. So we got communities in the organization, and we encourage people to be part of a community. It all started informally, and then we formalized it by, funding it for any kind of experiments that people want to do. So people join those communities, number one. Number two is, if anybody wants to further their education or, go for a certification in that community or technology, we reimburse the fee to people. I must share one of the practices that was very, very successful in one of the companies I work with within the Larsen & Toubro group, is that we used to give a 5-day sabbatical to people to go and spend the time in the 33 labs that we had around the country in whichever way they wanted. So, we never asked them question on how much, what did they do, how many hours did they spend. We just allowed them to spend their time. And lots of patents came out of that spending time. And lots of rewards were given because of the patents that people got. So the company benefited, the individual benefited, and that's how I think we promoted and we encouraged learning in people by themselves and being part of a community. And we didn't force anybody to do that. They did it on their own.
Pooja, maybe just building on that Tanisha's point, we've also seen tech companies build communities around this, because that's such a powerful mechanism of learning and creation, a pull around the community. For example, Salesforce has a large Trailblazer trailer community, right? So it's multi-million number of members who are part of that. Now, it's a community that runs on its own, right? The company just provides a platform for it. And that community creates its own various levels of, in some sense, ranking, badges, celebration of various achievements. So there's a lot of pull that communities create. And to Manisha's point, within the organization, within technology companies creating platforms, that's a very powerful mechanism of creating a pull around skilling.
Thank you, all of you, for giving your inputs. We go to the next phase of our session today. So recent changes in our working environments have accelerated the need for the workforce is to be more agile. For example, doing the same job in the virtual world requires new tools, new skills, making reskilling an essential business imperative. So next question is to Anil and Panish. Both of you, please share your thoughts on what are your expectations from learning programs to drive business innovation and transformation in your organization. Panish, we can start with you and then move to Anil.
The objective of learning in our organization is basically to make sure that people have the relevant skill to provide the necessary service that is ever changing, and also to help people to stay relevant and be wanted in the company. And also, I think, for their own growth in the organization with several opportunities, those would be the objectives in our organization, I would say, with regards to learning.
Anil?
Yeah, so Pooja, before I answer that, I just wanted to link it to the the industry that I come from. Ours is ITES, right? Enabled services, where digital transformation is the new normal. And across industries, this is happening at a terrific pace. Now, automation or any lever to transform business is going to cannibalize some of the revenue that's yielding customer interactions. It could be voice, it could be back office, it could be chat, and as a result, there will be some deployments in the sense of workforce. Now, let's assume that 30% of volumes go down in the across the industry. It means that 30% of our employees will have to be reskilled to do something different, right? And specifically for people who are in their formative years of their career, it becomes important to future-proof their careers and do something right away, because the day is not far. From maybe 3 to 5 years from now, we will see a massive change in business, and there will be a lot of transformation and automation, and the regular run-of-the-mill industry probably may not exist. So on learning programs, I mean, you asked me about expectations from from learning programs, and I want to talk from the learner as well as the organization. Now, on learning programs, context has it has to be anything that we provide in terms of content has to be contextual, right? It needs to be simple, needs to be relevant, and then need to meet the needs of what the person is supposed to do in the organization. And every learner usually asks this question: how is the program relevant for me, and how does this training intervention make me a better professional? That's paramount. And the second thing, I guess, what runs in everybody's mind is, how does the training program help me implement at work, right? I mean, if I go to work tomorrow after learning, how am I going to implement what I learned yesterday and be more productive in my current role? That's from a learner's perspective, and those are the expectations that every learner would have from any learning program. And this is what we actually do when we have conversations with our partners, whether it's Coursera or Skillsoft or Udemy or anybody who partners with us for learning programs. Now, the expectations from employees as well, right? From the learners. We are looking for smart and creative employees. I mean, people who actually can bring creative and disruptive ideas to the table. And, being in a culture of learning is so critical for the industries that we actually operate from. And be mindful of what is happening around the world, like what are the latest trends, and keep being up to date with what's really happening. One of the important things I keep telling my people is learning agility. And the clear definition of learning agility is knowing what to do when you don't know what to do, right? It's a very complicated definition of learning agility, but you need to thrive even when you don't know what to do. You need to do something, right? And that's really learning agility. And we really look for, and I saw a question from one of the participants, what should an HR person focus when they get into their job? One is, of course, have the understanding how to apply digital to make process better for customers and for employees, paramount. And second is, of course, learning agility. You should know, you should not depend on supervision. Constant supervision is not going to be available in a remote working environment, right? So you need to know what you need to do, and even when you don't know what to do. So I think those are things that are expectations from a learner as well as from the organization, Pooja.
Yeah, thank you, Anil. A very valid point. I think today more than ever, we can't become very complacent and in a comfort zone in our businesses. It's about, finding problems and finding creative solutions to the problem to take it to a next level or a different direction.
Yep.
Dallas, in your experience, how should organizations plan at linking learning efforts with tangible business outcome?
Sure. I think a great question, and I'm sure there will be much better answers from the others, but let me try and get a first attempt at it. So I think fundamentally the way we have noticed, and especially in the way the learning frameworks have evolved, they've evolved from being an open learning, concept where it was, in some ways learning was like a general benefit, given to an employee. And the fundamental way we would typically look at is what are the learning costs per employee, and then it was given as a general employee benefit, right? So that was more an open learning type of a concept. Still exists in certain areas of what you want to achieve as a goal, but you would push across certain amount of learning in this context of open learning. The second one is typically more driven by, some certain set of imperatives, which is driven by a theme, right? Okay, if you're going through, let's say, a Salesforce project, and you want to run a set of a theme around upskilling around usage of certain, the tool, right? So you then organize the content around a particular theme. You identify the role where that theme is applicable, or the department where it is there. So in such cases, you typically put a very guided program, when you typically measure things around learning hours and course completion, right? So that's another set of approach, right? So these two have been there for some time. But what is emerging now, and what is becoming more and more critical in the context of this, the change with technology, the change with the digital, the sheer need for reskill, upskill, is around constantly looking at your critical roles in the organization. This is across industries, right? It doesn't matter if it's just IT services. It is equally applicable for a manufacturing company, equally applicable for a retail organization, to look at the critical roles, and then start mapping what are the critical skills that are required in those roles for them to be relevant and to be innovative, right? So in most of these times, as things are emerging, you will start realizing it was not the skills that they had, or it's not the skills that they have been operating with that will take them to the next level. It is actually a mix of newer skills. A lot of them, by virtue of the fact that technology is getting embedded in many of those areas, critical roles, which earlier probably did not have technology skills, or let's say even in a simple case, customer interaction skills, where they did not have direct engagement previously, but those skills have started becoming more and more critical. You're starting to identify those specific skills around those roles and started to curate those across the organization. That then makes it far more impactful in the context of mapping it back to the business impact, right? In the sense of, okay, here is the transformation initiative that we started. Here is the critical roles that we identified. Here are the critical skills that we had. Now, as we are progressing through this transformation, how is the transformation taking shape, and how is that skill development keeping pace with it, right? Because it's not a static skill, right? I think we spoke about the skill being constantly evolving, right? And I love the word Anil used here, learning agility, right? The constantly seeing ahead of the two curves that you don't see today, and then wanting to be prepared for that. So that will come with a more skills first approach, right? It comes with an approach where you're constantly looking at your talent and looking at in demand skills aligned to your talent, right? So it will move from, a paradigm of, I would say, keeping your top talent, right? That was one paradigm, to keeping your talent on top, right? So that's the world that you're going into.
I think, if I can add to what Dallas was saying, there's a big role that the manager has to play in everybody's learning. And the more realization is that I don't know what I should know, and I don't know what I should be doing to know what I need to know for the future. If somebody can guide and somebody can tell, and that honest feedback, which otherwise, should be through a performance management system, which is lacking nowadays. People don't give a very honest feedback. I think if that can be done, learning could be more directed, planned, and objective oriented. Otherwise, people are just going whatever, learn whatever gets you a job, learn whatever gives you more money. I don't think that should be the objective. So there is a big role that we are missing while we are talking of learning, that the manager has to play. And believe me, if one can show interest in somebody's learning and growth, that person will be married to that manager forever.
No, Panish, I think one of the things that we starting to see in some places very aligned to this is this context. As you map skills around the roles, and then you start mapping individuals around in terms of where are you in that skills matrix, right? Are you cutting edge? Are you a laggard? Are you just about meeting the skills? So it's like when I log into my skills, the repository, and then I see, because that repository is digital, because that skills are now calibrated and visible in a platform, you then say, okay, you know what, I'm lagging behind, right? I could have been a top talent maybe some time back, but as I'm seeing, here is where my organization skills are going, and here is where I am today, right? One is the feedback, and the other is this transparency of visibility of where you are, and in terms of relevancy of where the company's skills are going, would be another powerful mechanism of pushing people to moving up.
Dallas, many people don't have the visibility of where the organization is going to direct themselves, honestly. So somebody's got to take interest in doing that, number one. And number two, managers, I think, are realizing that, building is cheaper than buying, right?
Yes.
So they need to invest. And building is faster than buying also.
Oh,
so, both
absolutely.
in terms of, your ability to revenue and your ability to generate profits comes from, your investment of time in building the skill in the people. So if that interest is taken, I think, it's a win-win situation. Otherwise, if we expect everybody to take care of their own future, it will become a very chaotic world.
Another element,
always.
I can just add to what both of them were saying.
Yes, Raj, I was going to you only. Please go ahead.
Element is just to add to that particular discussion is about learning methods. Okay. Now, in many pockets, or let's put it this way, in some pockets, learning methods have also started changing and getting customized to, because each of us learn differently, right? And each of us learn different things differently, right? Now, how well can we customize that learning? How that also makes a big difference. It adds to the pull factor on the one hand, it adds to the effectiveness of the learning on the other. And I'm not sure if enough is being done on making sure that learning is available through different methods. And again, ultimately, we're saying that we are getting more individualistic. Yeah, and that's true. We are getting more individualistic. And I think this thing of remote working and all of that is just going to add to that, right? So investing in flexible learning and learning of different kinds, and getting people to understand what is their preferred learning method, yeah, and choose how they want to learn, I think is going to be the other element to it. Yes, I'm saying this on top of the points that have been stated before, because I agree with both the previous gentlemen that leaders play a big role, or managers play a big role, and the structuring of training, the way it's linked to outcomes is very important. But very importantly, methods. Yeah, how do you learn? And tailor making that, I think, is very critical.
Yeah, and the whole concept of what is there for me, right? Sometimes when my manager tells me go ahead and learn that, fine, at least my manager is telling I don't need to take that baggage on my head.
Correct.
Second thing is, especially for people who are, let's say, in between two projects, the so-called bench or something like that, and many times you say go and learn, they feel very nervous that I don't know, I learned something and I still don't get deployed into a project somewhere else. Now, if I go to them and say, you know what, these are the 10 skills on which I have got lots of demands available. If you just learn this, you straight away get into that, fill that demand. You will find that these people are very motivated. They know that if I do this, I will be in this project. But if you generally tell them these are the hard skills, go and learn something, that inner thing is there. If I spend so much amount of effort, time, whether I'll be able to go there or not. So that is where what happens. And we recently were toying with the idea of like returning moms or begin again programs where a lot of women with maternity for 1 year. In 1 year, so much has changed in this world. Technologies have changed. When you come back, you're a little out of place. So now we are going to them and say, I have a customized program, like what Raj said, which will actually say what you used to know 12 months back. I'm going to little refurbish it. And with that, you will be on the same par at where you were earlier, and you don't lose that 1 year time. Now, in turn, the program could be 90% same as what it is there for someone else, but that 10% customization that you are saying, which links between their past and today and what is new, creates that feeling, this is something for me. And if I do this, I will be on par with where I left, right? So something like that.
Sure. I'll just take one audience question in the end. Do you drive skills transformation based on a clear business outcome, such as revenue or profitability? Or do you measure ROI in terms of employee engagement and people development, irrespective of immediate business outcomes? Anurag, Anand?
Yeah. See, at the end of the day, it is about business outcome. The only difference is it business outcome today, or is it business outcome 6 months down the road or 1 year down the road? So the simple answer to this is both. But yes, when we drive these programs and you have launch it, we always say these are the kind of hot demands that are there in each business group. And for those hot demands is where we encourage these people to go and learn. However, like every organization, has their learning management system. We also have 50,000 programs and things like that. And we encourage people, go ahead and learn anything you want, anywhere, any device, anytime, especially youngsters, you can work 24/7. So the thing is that when we offer people, you learn anything, you realize that there is some traction of some section of people who will be motivated to learn things. But when you drive initiatives which are focused to a business outcome, you find that, the participation is more, people finish the programs much. Otherwise, a lot of people will join a program, they will leave it halfway down because it's okay, if I can learn today, I can learn tomorrow, I can learn after 1 month, because it's not something business urgent. The moment you add that urgency factor, I need 100 cloud positions open and I want people to work on cloud, you find suddenly those programs getting finished much faster.
True. Anand, 1 point from you on this.
I think you're on top of the hour, Pooja. But a quick one, yes, of course, we do measure. I again split it up between what my organization needs, business needs, what new skill sets are required. I think, especially in the technology fold, etc., I'm able to measure business impact very clearly, because the deal is very simple to the team, that if somebody needs to perform on a Monday morning exactly the way it's being performed by other experts, then how do you build that skill set? So the measurement is very, very clear. On the other aspect, which is the learner driven for future skills that Anurag also mentioned, it depends on where you are in the journey. So at the awareness level, the measurement is how many people have taken it, what's the kind of engagement, how much time have they spent it. and seeing how many of them are ready to take it forward. See, it's a little different in my industry compared to Kanish, Anurag, or even Anil's industry, right? For me, it is, I may not have the projects that they're talking about, but there could be modernization opportunity, there could be process improvement opportunity. Are people actually wearing that hat? And are they looking at something that could drive efficiency? And I think if you are able to achieve that, that's fantastic. So we see measurements out there happening there.
Yeah, so we are conscious of time. So we'll close this roundtable, but it was an amazing session. All your energies came right through. Insights were absolutely powerful. So thank you all for attending this session. And I'd like to conclude saying critical thinking and problem solving top the list of skills employers believe will grow in prominence in the next 5 years. Also emerging are skills in self-management, such as active learning, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. With that, we come to an end of this roundtable. Thank you everyone for joining.